OP12 Legacy of the Master is coming soon here in the One Piece trading card game, with pre-releases happening just in a little bit. A lot of people are excited for this set, especially with the lull of waiting for the upcoming ban list and, Dallas Nationals for North America. And a lot of people are trying to dig in of what cards you need to get to prepare for this upcoming meta. I've got another buy list here for you, just as I've been doing every set since like OP06. And especially since we've already seen the meta out in the East, we have a better understanding of what cards are actually pretty good, what cards are a little bit overrated, or what might have potential. Now, especially in topics with the ban list, I personally don't think really anything in OP12 is really going to be affected by the ban list. So regardless if UP Luffy gets banned or Hody Jones actually gets hit or anything of the sort, you can click the link in the description below to reference my Google sheet that I've got publicly available to all of you, whether that's before the ban list or after the ban list. And when the ban list happens, we'll cover it on the channel, and we're even streaming the One Piece Day live TCG portion, so subscribe while you can. Subscribe while you can. Time is running out. Subscribe! But anyways, before we get into what the best cards in the set are, let's hear from more from our sponsors so I can pay rent this next month. Then Garden is officially celebrating their 1-year anniversary. This mat's on sale. This mat's on sale. This mat's on sale. Literally everything on their website is slashed for this anniversary sale. You can pick up some old favorites or brand new designs on their website at a discounted price and stack my code Atrocious on top of that for 5% off. This anniversary sale is not going to last forever, so make sure to click the link in the description below and get your new favorite playmat today from one of my favorite people out here in the community. Thank you again to Garden for sponsoring this video, and congratulations again to 1 year of great things. Now, let's get back to the video. Now, I'm going to be starting out with the tier 1 cards, or as I label it, cards that are either incredibly good, like just generally for a lot of decks within that color, or therefore a specific archetype that's really freaking good. Starting off, I'll talk about Shaku Yaku. Now, make sure you get a playset of this. Not only is this a one-drop searcher, which I just generally think one-drop searchers are very good in the game and you always want to have. This is specific to Rayleigh, so this whole first portion of tier 1 is going to be a lot of key Rayleigh pieces. Helping your engine go of finding a red event or Luffy, this is very synonymous to something like the Sengoku when Doflamingo was running around. I'm also putting this Shanks in the tier 1 category with the update of PRB02 and Shanks getting some new pieces in the Trafalgar Law, the Lucky Roo. I've got deck lists on a previous video talking about all the PRB02 cards. This Shanks has actually been a mainstay in the archetype since OP12, and especially with the ban list, I have a good feeling that we might see Shanks a little bit more often in the meta, so I really like this card. This is one of those like sneaky rares that you should have a playset of. Maybe get the alternate art for pretty cheap. Now, Boa Hancock, just like Shaku Yaku, is another searcher that I put in the tier 1 category for Rayleigh, but alongside that activate main of being able to give 2 Rested Dawn cards somewhere makes it actually a really neat option within games to be able to use the Rayleigh leader effect, make it a 5,000 power character, swing at a 5,000 power leader, then go ahead and reutilize 2 Dawn to be able to get the boost on the Luffy that we'll talk about here in a second, or maybe just swing bigger with other characters or your leader. These 2 searchers are very key in the deck and is not the only search that we'll talk about in the Rayleigh archetype. Now, the other red SR, the Luffy that I previously just mentioned, is definitely one of the best cards in Rayleigh. If you have 2 or more attached Dawn cards, that's anywhere on the field. It doesn't have to be just this Luffy. You go ahead and give this guy 2,000 power. That is a continuous thing. That is all the time, offensively and defensively. You can already kind of see the synergy right there with that Boa Hancock. But with an on play of being able to play out another character, it's a huge combo within this archetype to play 4-drop Luffy and then spam out 3-cost Sanji back in OP10. It's one of the key combos of the archetype and is why the Boa Hancock and the Shaku Yaku both search for either a red event or Monkey D. Luffy. If you're playing Rayleigh, you need this card. And honestly, I could see this card being played in other red Straw Hat Crew type decks as well, especially if you've got a handful of events at your disposal. Now, I actually consider each one of the 4 haki cards, or I guess I should say the Rayleigh cards, I guess only 3 of them are haki related, to be in the tier 1 category. They're all present in the Rayleigh decks, and I think are pretty important for the game plan as a whole. We'll start off with the zero cost event, To Feel No Doubts. That is True Strength. Now, this is basically the Diable Jambe for Silver's Rayleigh, or making a Silver's Rayleigh card unblockable. Now, the upside to this is you're just giving 2 active Dawn to a Silver's Rayleigh, which a lot of times if you're going for unblockable, you're probably putting active Dawn on this guy anyways. But this doesn't get around things like 8 cost use as Captain Kidd, and you can only give it to a Silver's Rayleigh, which in the Rayleigh deck typically is just the leader. It's still an incredibly impactful card because just like a lot of these other zero cost events, you can actually use this event as counter to give a character a Silver's Rayleigh plus 2,000 power for a battle. That means without having to spend Dawn, without having to trash cards in hand, this is at least a 2K. I see this as at least a 3 of in every single Rayleigh deck that I've come across, and it's more often than not a 4. So you definitely want to get a full play set. Observation Haki is debatably the best of the 4 zero cost events in my personal opinion. If you attach an active Dawn to a Silver's Rayleigh, look at the top 4, reveal a red event or a character card with the cost of 3 or more added to your hand. Place the rest at the bottom of your deck. This is a 3rd searcher within your Rayleigh deck that is just coming out of this set. And this is another one of those unconditional find an event card to be able to use your leader effect, or maybe a 3 cost or higher. It's another addition to try to find your Luffy. It's an addition to try to find Kid Killer, as well as potentially other pieces like the 3 cost Fresh Zoro, the 3 cost Sanji that you can play alongside the Luffy. So there's so many benefits to have this card, especially in the early game. Even though that blue-purple Luffy more than likely going to get hit, and we'll see if the leader actually gets banned. But in a format where there's still a couple 6,000 power leaders, getting an active Dawn through this event is very valuable because that means you can still swing at lead, right? A lot of times just with searcher events or different searchers in general, you have to pay Dawn, you have to tap Dawn that you can't attach to your leader. Conqueror's Haki is actually one of my favorite zero costs in this set. This is an incredibly strong card in my opinion, only used for the counter though. Similar to the That Is True Strength zero cost event that we talked about earlier, on the counter you can just give 2,000 power for the battle. But if you go ahead and tap a Dawn card while using this event, you give all of your opponent's leaders and characters minus 1,000 power for the turn. This is such a strong card if you're going against either a wide board or a super tall board, especially when you talk about things like Green Zoro. Green Zoro, right, swinging 8,000 power and then using that activate main to swing again at leader. Let's say he's swinging 8,000 power at your rested Luffy, which has that 2,000 power boost, right, from attached Dawn. So 6,000 power. Just using this event in general and tapping a Dawn to its fullest extent gets out of that attack in general, allowing you to boost your Luffy up to 8,000 power and minus that Zoro to 7,000 power. Then when he goes ahead and activates main, restands, and then swings at leader, he's a 7,000 power leader, assuming that he only has 3 Dawn attached. And if you do that again, right, tap another Dawn, you put your leader up to 7,000 power and his leader at 6,000 power. And then that even doesn't even talk about when he uses the Luffy will be king of the pirates event. He's still that same minus power because it's for the entire turn. And that doesn't even count different little swings like Cavendish, Tashigi, Hody Jones, Dracula Mihawk. There's such good power within this event, especially in the late game when your opponent's going for a game to just ruin math. As opposed to the defensive side, Aramen Haki is great for the offensive side. This zero cost event, if you give an active Dawn to Silver's Rayleigh, you can give a leader or character 1,000 power for the turn, effectively making it that 1 Dawn attached 2,000 power. This could be great for trying to go wide with some of your smaller bodies with like Shakuyaku or 1 cost buggy or things like that, or really just stack up as much damage as possible on your Silver's Rayleigh leader or whoever to go for game. Especially with King Kong Gatling and Arumen Haki on top of it, you can stack so much power on your leader. And then at worst case, it's another one of those zero cost 2000 power events. Going into green, I've got Kawamatsu. Kawamatsu, a vanilla 2K counter, is very good within Green Zoro and is most present in so many lists just simply because it's a /2K that you can find. This also has a lot of viability when you talk about other archetypes, maybe like Yamato, right? Because it is Land of Wano and Fishman as well. Fishman being good for the Fishman archetypes. Although incredibly basic, and oftentimes you probably in something like Zoro want a 2K counter that has a special effect to utilize. The fact of the matter is that this being 3 different types, and we'll talk about a card later of why the slash attribute is so important, makes this one of the most viable 2Ks, right? Even though it's vanilla. Definitely one of the most viable 2K vanillas. I'm also going to talk about Kuina. Kuina is a wide range in Zoro, right? I've seen people play 2 of, I've seen a lot of people play 4 of, because especially on the even curve, it is so nice to be able to rest something of equal value, right? Especially a 3 cost that may be on the field, and then go ahead and swing 8/8 with your Zoro leader, getting your leader effect off. Sure, Kuina is honestly really easy to remove, right? Being a 1000 power character, with that activate main, you have to rest. But there's a lot of great situations for this card, and it's almost kind of like an Usohachi type of deal, where like even at the end of the game, you can just use it to rest a chum blocker that's in your face, because chum blockers are still super popular. There are versions of this deck that don't play the Kuina, like I'm pretty sure the Fishman version of Green Zoro doesn't play this card, but it's still so popular and still really, really good in my opinion that I think you need to get a 4 of, especially as an uncommon. Koshiro is debatably one of the best cards in green coming out of this set, and it may not seem like much as a 2 cost blocker, but being able to protect a slash type attributed character with a cost of 5 or lower from being KO'd by opponent's effects, there are so many decks that are playing this card because actually 5 cost or lower slash type characters are super popular within the format right now, right? Green Blue Rosinante playing this card, Red Green Smoker playing this card. It protects the 5 cost Smoker, the 5 cost Cavendish, even the 4 cost Cavendish that's blue in Dressrosa. And I could see it being played in just anything that has an important 5 cost slash character, even if not necessarily super searchable, right? Because East Blue and Shimotsuki Village, not overly popular except for maybe like Blue Green Zoro Sanji, which another deck that could play this card. This is just a really great protection effect that really has to redirect your opponent's focus, especially in my Green Blue Rosinante deck, right, that has no searches for this card. This is actually just so important and gives me so much value, especially in the early game, to protect my Cavendish. It's such a good card. Hiyori is an automatic 4 of, right? It's basically the Jewelry Bonnie for Green Zoro, being able to find not only a slash attributed character, which, spoiler alert, a lot of cards in this set that we're going to talk about are slash attribute. We've talked about a couple of them already, or also a green event that is just so much value, right? It's kind of interesting because, you know, we see like the Jewelry Bonnie being able to grab any supernova, which includes itself. This Hiyori can't grab itself because it's not a slash attribute. So in exchange, it's able to find green events. That could be Luffy will be king of the pirates. That could be Dead Man's Game. That can be Electrical Luna. Just any green event. Although this is leader lock to Zoro green leaders, this is a great one to have, especially if you play the new green boogeyman of the format. Shibotsuki Kozaburo is a 2K that is very present in not only Zoro, but a ton of other decks as well, right? Being slash, it's searchable off Hiyori and some other cards that we'll talk about here soon. It is East Blue, so Zoro Sanji can find it with the Nami searcher that we saw in that one championships, I think it was Miyagi, Land of Wano to be able to find in different Land of Wano builds like Yamato. It's an easily searchable 2K counter, and on that on play, you can actually use it to rest chum blockers on the opposing side, right? We already talked about a 2-drop blocker that you're going to automatically be able to rest even if you don't KO it. So like, a lot of value in this guy. Dracul Mihawk is an incredible card within this set, an 8-cost, 8,000 power blocker, but on play, you set 4 Dawn as active. After that, though, you can't play an original cost of 7 or more for the rest of the turn. This card is best, in my opinion, in Red-Green Smoker, and we've seen it as a mainstay and dominate within the OP12 format, right? Red-Green Smoker getting a huge boost this set. Being able to set 4 Dawn active just from this Dracul Mihawk effect, you can still set up Dawn through the Cavendish effect, right? Through then your leader effect, because this is an 8,000 power character. And then if you had a 5-cost smoker on the field, that's another Dawn that you can restand. That's a very much ideal scenario, so don't expect that to happen often. But what is that? That's 4 Cavendish, leader, smoker. That's 9 Dawn total that you can restand in a turn. That's actually insane. This is just generally a really good 8-cost blocker to be able to reutilize Dawn. Tons of green decks are using this, especially if you have slash type packages to be able to search it. And don't be surprised if this is one of the more expensive SRs within the set. Toshigi holds her own in Zoro decks with that on-play effect of resting a 6-cost or less, and then giving a Zoro leader 3 rested Dawn. Very similar to Kuina, except you don't have to rest this Toshigi instead of an activate main being an on-play. This is super good because you actually get to rest a cost higher than the Toshigi, right? It's not very often that we see a lot of cards rest things higher than themselves without having to tap or maybe rest additional things or trash a card from hand or whatever. And also as a 7k body, this has swinging potential if it survives within the turn. You'll only see this in Zoro, and even if Navy type leaders come out, probably won't play this card, but just a really good staple within this archetype. Nekomamushi, similar to Kawamatsu, just a really nice searchable 2k with 3 different typings on top of that. This one though, kind of being pretty good within Carrot, I think. Having that Minx archetype just gives it a lot of flexibility, just like Kawamatsu within different decks. Perona, similar to Hiyori, is a character that is a 1-drop searcher for slash type attributes or a green event. Now, this one is a little bit different, Hiyori being leader locked to a Zoro, but Perona being able to search if you just have a slash type attribute leader, right? We've seen this be placed in Green Zoro, we've seen it be placed in Red Green Smoker. I think also the blue Zoro Sanji might have played it. But again, being able to find a slash attribute card or a green event just gives it so much flexibility within not only Zoro, but in any deck that it's playing. I put this Zoro in tier 1. There are a lot of people playing this Zoro. It's very popular in a variety of different ranges of like 2 to 4 copies in a deck. This card is really good for the mirror match, which I think is a big reason why it's played. It's a 4-cost, 5,000 power slash type character with Supernova and Straw Hat typing. This card cannot be played from hand by an effect. So if you look at something like the 3-cost 2k Dracul Mihawk, you actually can't play it from that Dracul Mihawk. But in exchange, if your leader has the slash attribute, this character cannot be KO'd in battle by slash attribute cards and gains 1,000 power. Specifically saying slash attribute cards, the only thing in the mirror match that I'm pretty sure can KO this character is like the 1-cost Hiyori or the 1-cost Perona. And by the way, it's not a 5,000 power character in the mirror, it's a 6,000 power character. I think this card is going to be really popular in Zoro decks, especially in Dallas post-ban list, when blue-purple Luffy gets hit in whatever fashion and knocks it down a notch. Because I think there's just gonna be more Zoro decks out there. And even stuff like Zoro Sanji. Zoro Sanji gonna be playing this card. Now, going into the events, Demonic 9-Sword Stylosaur, Dead Man's Game, is, in my opinion, probably the best card within green in this set. It's a 1-cost event that has that counter of gaining 3,000 power for the battle, very similar to a lot of other cards that we have that are coming out in the game. But if you use it on your turn, you can rest 3 additional Dawn and rest up to 2 of your opponent's character or Dawn cards. Basically, this is a mini Hody Jones. Sure, you don't get the 8,000 power rush body, but using this only costs 4 Dawn and can still give you the edge to try to go for a game or KO a character on field. This card is super good, and being Straw Hat Crew as well, it's searchable in a decent amount of decks that want to play this card, right? We talked about Hiyori and Perona wanting to find green event cards. This can be found on there. Green, purple Luffy, right? Even though you can't find it on the 4-cost Zoro Juro, any of the other searches, right, you can find a Straw Hat Crew type card like this, and just, man, like this card is so good. Luffy is the man that will become king of the pirates is basically your Uta I'm Invincible event, set up to one of your Zoro leaders as active. I mean, this is a good card. I mean, there's not too much to say. This is a great endgame card. This isn't like the same thing as your leader effect restanding, so like, if you swing at a character and then use this event, you can swing again at a character and then use your activate main to restand swing at lead. Especially because this, just like Dead Man's Game, also searchable within Hiyori, within Perona, within all of those. Get 4 of these rares. Now, we'll get to a majority of the blue cards later, but I want to go over Conqueror. This is an event card that if your leader is Sanji, you can draw 1 card on your main phase, or if you have 4 or more events in the trash, on the counter, up to one of your leaders gets 4,000 power during the battle. This is, to probably nobody's surprise, is very viable within Sanji, the blue-purple Sanji that's coming in the set. I've got this in the tier 1 category because if you didn't see in the recent championships, there were 2 people playing Sanji blue-purple in the top 16 with the exact same deck list. Although I wouldn't call Sanji one of the best decks, I think it's a meta viable contender within the format, and it's a staple inside of it, so I'm gonna put it in the tier 1 category. Stuff like Kuzan, a lot of those staples, because Kuzan doesn't really have the showcase of results like blue-purple Sanji, despite it being a very popular leader. I'd put that more in the tier 2 category. Most of his cards are going to be in that tier 2 section. If you saw my video on blue-purple Sanji showcasing the deck, it's very easy to get 4 or more events in your trash, so having a 1-cost 4,000 counter event is really freaking good, especially also because this is a great card to be able to replace itself in your hand, whether using it for your leader effect or just trying to draw one. Boof Burst is the other event card that I would put in the tier 1 category. This is kind of the lifeblood of the Sanji deck in terms of events. It's debatably the most important event in the deck. If your leader is multicolored, you can choose one of 2 options. You can return an opponent's character of a cost of 4 or less to the owner's hand, or if your hand size is 6 or fewer, draw 2 cards. This can be a conditional Sanji's Pilaf or a good removal card like a Brick Fist, right? And especially because it's a blue Straw Hat Crew event, you can actually play it through blue-purple Sanji's leader effect of Dawn -1. Play it for free. There's a lot of strength within this card. There's a lot of versatility in this card, and it's one of the reasons why Sanji is a good, viable leader within this format. But that's going to close out all the blue cards in this set, in tier 1 at least. We're not done talking about Sanji, though, as an archetype, because Reiju is most certainly a staple within the deck. One of the few characters that the deck actually plays. It's a 4-cost 5,000 power blocker with 1k counter. You may not see this as like super incredible, but if your trash contains 4 or more event cards, this character gains 2,000 power and plus 5 cost. Now, 7,000 power is already a really nice boost, right, for playing for 4 Dawn, but the plus 5 cost, in my opinion, is the biggest thing about this card. Boosting up to a 9 cost, this is super hard to remove off the field, especially when black doesn't have things like Ice Age anymore. This card, within the little bit of testing I've done and the games that I've watched with this deck, more than likely sticks on the field unless removed by power. I think power is really the biggest thing, but as a 7,000 power, it's not overly easy to remove. You're gonna have to work for it a little bit. Sanji's also in that tier 1 category as another staple within the Sanji deck. It's a 3-cost 5,000 power brick card, but there's 2 things attached to it. For every 5 events in your trash, this character gains 1,000 power. It's basically like the off-brand version of Burgess, right? Because Burgess is just 4 cards in trash with a deck that is all about trashing cards. So Sanji oftentimes doesn't reach the same heights of power as Burgess, but honestly, in my testing, I can consistently get this guy to like 8,000 power in games. And a 3-cost 8,000 power character is nothing to scoff at. On top of that, this Sanji is almost impossible to remove from the field on opponent's effects. If this character would leave the field due to an opponent's effect, you can instead return 1 Dawn from your Dawn deck. This is an ongoing effect anytime within the game, however many times in a turn. That's really good. This is an extremely sticky body that your opponent has to battle with in order to get out of it. And especially when this starts stacking up as a 6,000 power character, 7,000 power character, 8,000 power character, you can deal a lot of damage with this Sanji, especially when you can get multiple of them on the field because of so much draw and searching that you do. We'll talk about some of the searches here in a second. This guy's pretty good within the deck. I also have a Pudding Searcher in the tier 1 category, a 1-drop 2,000 power 1k counter Big Mom Pirates card with an on play of looking at the top 4 in the deck, reveal a Sanji or event card and add it to your hand. Then place the rest at the bottom in any order. This is obviously a really good card in Sanji and in my opinion a staple, being able to find either your 3-cost Sanji, your 2k counter Sanji, or any of your like 20 some events, 30 events that you play in the deck. It's a really good card for the consistency. We also saw it in Blue Purple Luffy in the beginning of the OP12 format, right? Having a consistency piece on turn 1 to find stuff like Gear 2, God Thread, a couple of those ramp events. It's since fallen out of Blue Purple Luffy, and you don't really see it too much anymore, and I kind of don't really expect it to come back in. But if Blue Purple Luffy survives the ban list that's coming up, it might be a nice card to just have in the back of your pocket in case it plays that card, right? Because if they don't hit the Blue Purple Luffy leader, then they're probably going to hit something like 9 Mom. And then at that point, there's 4 open slots for you to put in the deck, which you may say could be like the 8-cost Rush Luffy or the 9-cost Rush Luffy or something like that. But you could just add a consistency piece like the 1-cost Charlotte Pudding. I don't know. Luffy is the man that will become King of the Pirates, the second card with that name in this set, this one being Sanji, a 1-cost event, which is actually one of the most interesting events within this game. Similar to something like the 4-cost ulti that never really gets played at all. If your leader is Sanji, you can look at the top 3 cards of your deck and put 1 card into your hand and the rest in the bottom of the deck in any order. This searches for literally anything. You don't have to reveal it. It's a complete secret. And you can play it for free or Dawn -1 through Sanji's leader effect. Another staple within the Sanji deck, another great card and event card within the Sanji deck. It's the ultimate consistency piece, right? Because it just literally finds you anything. It allows you to play stuff like in that Sanji deck like Jozu or Kaya or even Pudding, Reiju that typically you can't find any other way because they're not like Straw Hat Crew or Sanji's or event cards. This card's cracked. Now going on into black, I've got Koala. It's a 1-drop searcher, right? I always put 1-drop searchers in tier 1. But your leader has to have the Rev Army type to look at the top 3 cards of the deck and grab a Rev Army or Nico Robin. The 1-drop searchers, like this being leader locked to a specific typing kind of stinks. But looking at the Rev Army leaders, right, there's a Koala in this set. We have Red Black Sabo from OP05. We have a new Red Black Sabo coming in OP13. There's some versatility within this deck, and I see it pretty much in all of them as a great searcher. And also being able to find Nico Robin is an added boost, building up your trash. Speaking of Nico Robin, this Straw Hat Crew card is so good within this game. It's a 6-cost 7,000 power Straw Hat Crew brick, but if your leader is Koala or Luffy, this character gains blocker and +3 cost. It's not often that we see cards like this. allow 2 different leaders, directly naming them to be able to gain these additional effects. Usually it's just like either one leader or one typing, but having great play in both of those decks, making it a 9 cost character and blocker, right? Koala loves the extra cost characters in play. Purple Luffy, right? Purple Black Luffy specifically loves this additional cost because you can actually make it a 10 cost character in play with your leader effect. Plus, on play, if you trash a card from your hand, if your opponent's hand is 5 or greater, they gotta discard 2 cards from their hand. Now, they get to choose those 2 cards, but honestly, on a 6-on turn, playing this down is so good. There's a lot of value within this card, and I see it pretty much in every black-purple Luffy deck and Koala deck that I come across. And especially if they build maybe either other black, like mono-black leaders or half-black leaders of Luffy in the future, this card's only going to see more and more value as time goes on. Dragon is the last card in Tier 1 for black. It's an 8-cost, 8,000 power Rev Army brick. This SR has an on-play effect. Return 3 cards with Rev Army type from your trash to the bottom of your deck in any order. And if your leader has the type of Rev Army, you can play a character with a cost of 6 or less from your trash. Although this is leader locked to the Rev Army typing, the character that you can play out can be any 6 cost or less. It doesn't have to just be a Rev Army card. This gives so much versatility within those 3 leaders that I mentioned earlier that are Rev Army and partially black. And I really like this card in pretty much all of those decks, right? Especially with stuff like that 1-cost Koala. You're going to build your trash. You're going to have 3 Rev Army cards in your trash to be able to bottom deck, and playing out a 6-cost character provides so much different things that you can do, right? Like in Koala, you can bring out another one of these cards that we'll talk about later, right? Like a blocker or Karasu, right? In red-black Sabo. Being able to bring that guy back up from the trash is so annoying for so many people. Minus 1,000 to your leader, minus 1,000 to your leader, minus 1,000 to your leader. This card is cracked and definitely not as good as 8-cost Gecko, but I think Bandai's kind of learning from their ways a little bit on how they want to structure stuff like this. Now, I actually only have one non-secret rare yellow card in Tier 1, and that's this Don Quixote Rocinante 1-cost searcher. Now, I mean, to put it simply, this is a 1-cost searcher. You could debate that this is actually like a Tier 2 searcher because it literally only finds Trafalgar Law, right? Doesn't find Navy, doesn't find Don Quixote Pirates. It's literally just Trafalgar Law. So restricting it in a sense because Trafalgar Law doesn't have like 100,000 cards that you can play with it is a much more limited card pool. But if you watch the Kai's video, it's a staple in the purple-yellow Rocinante deck that comes out this set. Just a, good searcher. Going on to the secret rares, Bonnie is one of the 2 that I really enjoy in this. A 5-cost, 6,000 power blocker with a 1k counter on it. On play, if you have 8 or more rested cards, draw 2, trash 1 from your hand, and then set a Dawn as active. This is a really good card, right? Especially because the 8 or more rested cards counts as characters on field, counts as Dawn, counts as leader. There's a great opportunity to have 8 rested, right? We already talked about the Dracul Mihawk earlier, right? If you play the Dracul Mihawk and you rest 4 Dawn, right, after you restand 4 Dawn, that's 4 cards already that are rested. If you go ahead and play Bonnie right after that, tapping 5 if you're on like a 9 Dawn turn, or maybe if you're playing Red Green Smoker, you use leader effect to restand 2 more Dawn, that's over 8 rested cards right there. Because the cards that you tap in order to play this Bonnie count towards your 8. This is a really good card in Jewelry Bonnie, right? The OP07 green leader in Red Green Smoker. And honestly, I kind of like this card in Green Yellow Law as well. Being able to draw 2, trash 1 within green decks is actually so valuable, right? Draw cards, not something that are always super present within this color. And at the end of turn, especially for the Jewelry Bonnie decks, you can set it on as active. I mean, any deck finds that valuable, but Jewelry Bonnie loves that because maybe you can play this on curve. It takes a little bit though to play this on curve because you need 3 additional cards on your 5 Dawn turn to be rested. So we're talking like a 1-drop searcher, maybe another 1-drop searcher, 2 1-drop searchers, and also your leader. So it could be a little bit tough, but I hope you see what I mean in the value. Kuma is also a really, really good secret rare. It's been a while since we've had 2 really good secret rares in a set, I feel like, at least on the time of release. It took a little bit for Zoro and Sanji to be very valuable, but you get what I mean. This is a Rev Army 7 Warlords of the Sea yellow card, 6 cost, 7,000 power with a 1k counter on it. On play, if you trash a card from hand, you can add a card from the top of your deck to your life, and this character gains +2 cost until the end of your opponent's next end phase, making this a sticky body on the field. Being an 8 cost, it's really hard to remove. But on top of that, if they do KO it for whatever reason on your opponent's turn, you can just add the top card of your deck to your life. This is literally a card that can potentially heal 2 in a game. This is really, really good in Yellow Kid. This is really good in something like Bello Betty. I see some players play this. I mean, just a good yellow card in general. There's no restrictions on this. It is something you can play on 6 to heal. This could be something really good, honestly, in like a Nell, right? Because a Nell in kind of the 6 or 7 Dawn turn, you're not really playing anything that heals 1, right? Your healing really starts at like 8, 9 in that area. I don't really think that you're playing like 7 cost mom usually anymore, but you could, I guess. But Kuma having a 1k counter is really honestly something that I would love to have in this deck. I feel like this card may not explode onto the scene right away, something like Bonnie, because yellow's kind of been on the lower end of the totem pole, I think, in OP12. But this feels like one of the secret rares that like you don't get right away, and it's really cheap at the beginning, but you don't get it right away because you don't need it. But then all of a sudden, like some deck comes out of nowhere, the meta shifts to where yellow is really good, and you just wish that you had a play set of this, but it's super expensive now. Going back up to the tier 2 cards, 2-sword style Ai Rashomon is actually not that bad in an event that I sometimes see in deck lists in the OP12 format. Similar to Dead Man's Game, it's a green Straw Hat Crew event with 2 different events, with the 1 cost 3k counter on the counter phase. That is leader locked, though. The counter only goes to the leader, so something big to note. But on the main phase, if you use it, if you rest 2 additional Dawn, you can KO up to 2 opponents' rested characters with an original cost of 4 or less. One of the reasons that kind of like Bello Betty has fallen off the side of a cliff in OP12, despite Blue Purple Luffy still being a really, really good deck, right? Green deck's already being able to rest these different characters, but now having a way for 3 Dawn to KO original cost characters with a cost of 4 or less provides so much versatility in the Rayleigh matchup, in the Bello Betty matchup, literally any matchup that has 4 costs. It's definitely not a card that I see as popular as Dead Man's Game, but I do see it as a good tech card that you can have available to you. Talking about the blue cards, right? Especially the blue navy cards. I love blue Kuzan. I think the deck is so fun to play, right? Being able to have all of these cards that synergize very well with your leader effect and be able to draw a ton. Kuzan's the first on our list. It's a 6 cost, 8,000 power brick with the navy typing. If your hand size is 5 or more, this character costs +1. Now, I believe that this is giving the character a +1 cost on the field. It's not a +1 cost to the hand, so it's not like it actually takes 7 to play. It does have an on-play effect, though, that if you trash 1 card from your hand, up to 1 of your opponent's characters cannot attack until the end of their next phase. Right, very different than something like Carrot, where all it does is does not allow cards to be active in the next refresh phase. Kuzan says you can't attack at all. Sure, you could maybe activate main, turn it sideways for whatever effect, but you cannot attack. This is really nice in some different matchups, right? Especially when you talk about like Blue Purple Luffy, where they're playing these gigantic bodies much earlier than you on the field. Being able to use this effect, and also you discard 1 card from hand and your leader effect says draw 1 card. You can force those bodies that are getting a little bit ahead of you to say, whoa, hold up for a second. Let me play out some bodies to compete with you. Especially as a 6 cost 8,000 power character as well. This is a really good body on the field. And we'll talk about soon why this is like also just a great body within the deck. But we'll talk about what I honestly consider this might be the best blue card for Kuzan in this set. I don't know. It's definitely up for debate. It's a 7-cost, 8,000 power character that is a brick, but an on-play effect of if your leader is the Navy type, draw 2 cards. That's not saying trash 1, draw 2 cards. That is a straight up draw 2, right? So on play, this is basically a net 1 card. But on top of that, it also has an activate main once per turn. If you trash a card from your hand, you give up a Rested Dawn to one of your leaders or characters. Especially with the Kuzan leader effect, that's a free filter right there. And being able to reutilize Dawn, especially maybe on the exact curve, if you're on the odd curve and play this on 7, you can go ahead and be able to swing 6,000 power with leader or whatever. This card's really good in Kuzan, and one of the reasons why I think Kuzan is definitely on the potential to be a meta contender. I mean, I really like this card. Zephyr I've also got in this deck, not necessarily for the on play or the activate main. It's mostly just a searchable 2K, but if you do need to play it down, on play, trash 2 cards from your hand. That may seem like trash and that may seem really bad, but remember your leader effect. Draw 2 cards if you trash cards from Navy type cards. So it's basically a trash 2, draw 2 filter system. Also having that activate main, if you trash the character, you return a character with cost of 5 or less to the owner's hand, right? A cost of 5 or less is a lot of different blockers within the format or pesky characters. So if you don't really need the 2K, or maybe like you're trying to go for game or something like that, or what have you, this could be a really good card to just say, no, get that guy back. We've got the Sengoku here as well. I originally, when we first did the OP12 set review, was not like overly high on this card. I feel like I was like, you could probably see this in some Kuzan decks because you know, it is like it's finding 2 Navy cards and it's a little bit of filter, but I was like, I don't know if it really fits. But honestly, after playing the deck a little bit, this is a really good, like, this is a staple in the deck, right? Like, even if you do use the Tashigi Searcher, Sengoku is another great card in the early game to be able to find 2 Navy cards, which there are a lot within the top 5, but also that trash 1 on your leader effect is a draw 1. You're effectively finding like 3 cards and it's a net +1 at the end of the day. Like, this card's pretty good. 3,000 power character doesn't really do much besides swing at like maybe like Hiyori's that search or different like 1-drop things that search, but it's still pretty good. Hina, very similar to Zephyr, is an easily searchable 2K counter Navy type card, but if you play it, has this activate main. You can rest this character and trash 1 card from your hand, which with your leader effect draws a card. This allows one of your opponent's original cost of 4 or less to not be able to activate blocker during the turn, so it's like a really good end game card if your opponent only has 1 blocker on the field, like a chum blocker or something like that, which are still popular within the format. One of the best cards within this set, though, for Kuzan is this 8-drop 8,000 power Monkey D Garp. Now, this Garp has an on-play effect of trashing a card from hand using leader effect, which allows you to play a card of a blue Navy type of a power of 8,000 power or less on the field other than Garp. You know what 2 cards are 8,000 power that are really good Navy type cards? I'm talking Sakazuki. I'm talking Kuzan. Being able for 8 Dawn to play 2 8,000 power characters, which by the way, one of them can say draw 2 cards and maybe reutilize a little bit of Dawn, or the other one saying I'm gonna negate one of your attacks next turn. Holy just kind of like how blue-purple Luffy finding multiple Sanji Linlin combos kind of just wins the game. This Garp kind of has a similar feeling to a little bit of a lower level, I'll say, to where if you just find like back-to-back of these Garps playing out Kuzan or Sakazuki, it's really hard to lose. You get so much draw, you get so much filtering. There's so much potential within this blue Kuzan deck. Like, I'm gonna build this blue Kuzan deck and have it at the ready just in case it gets really good, because I think there's a chance, especially maybe with the ban list, that we could see this card just bam, punch out of here in the format. This event card is also really good within Kuzan. It's a 1-cost counter event to give one of your leaders or characters plus 4,000 power during a battle. Then you can trash 1 card from your hand. Especially with the trigger on it, as well as you may discard 1 card from your hand, draw 1 card. Kuzan's leader effect is at all times. It is whenever during the game. So on the counter phase, trashing 1 card allows you to draw 1 card, being a filter, but the trigger as well is basically a trash 1, draw 2 trigger, right? You trash 1 card from your hand on the trigger and you draw 1 to fulfill the trigger effect. And then your Kuzan leader effect's like, oh my God, you trash 1 card from a Navy type card, which is Ice Block Pheasant Beak. So you draw another card. Especially in a deck like this, you don't often like depend on triggers, but this trigger's pretty good. Now for the next tier 2 cards, we got to go all the way down to black. And trust me, we'll talk about more cards in the tier 3 category here soon. Hack is a 4-cost 5,000 power 1k counter Fishman, Dressrosa, Rev Army typing, another 3 typing character. If your leader has the Rev Army trait, this character gains blocker and plus 4 cost. And on KO, if your leader has the Rev Army trait, you can KO up to one of your opponent's characters with an original cost of 4 or less. It's basically a Lucky Roo, but honestly better than Lucky Roo within these Rev Army black decks, right? This becomes an 8 cost on the field, which helps allow Koala get her leader effect off, right? This also is really good for the OP13 Red Black Sabo coming up in the next set in Japan, because with that Dawn ×1, you can give that leader plus 1,000 power just right then and there on like a 5 Dawn turn, right? If you play down the hack for 4 and then add 1 to your leader, kind of negating that early game minus 1,000. Hack is played in pretty much every single Rev Army deck that is half black at least, and I don't really see that changing. Now, Bello Betty I find really interesting, not necessarily because it's in the Rev Army typing of like decks that play it, but because I saw Rob Lucci play this card, and it actually made a ton of sense, right? This 2k counter Bello Betty just can be nice to just have a 2k counter available that you can grab off like Rebecca and stuff. But if you play it on the field and you attack with it, you put 2 cards from your deck into the trash, building up your trash, and you actually give -2 on a character during a turn. This can be really helpful in trying to set up different KO effects. This can be a really good reusable 2k counter. Like, there's a lot of good stuff with this card that is sneakily being put into Rob Lucci. I don't think it's like something that you have to play in Rob Lucci. It's definitely like more like a tech utility card, but still, like, I mean, it's a good card. Morley I've also got in this. This is definitely more towards the Rev Army 2Ks. Very simple. If your leader's a Rev Army type, character gains +4 cost. This, in my opinion, is an automatic inclusion in the black Rev Army decks, right? Because, well, it's a great 2K, hard to remove because it's an 8 cost against other kind of black decks or different removal based decks that do with cost. Something like blue, I think, plays around with this a little bit. Even like resting things in the green Zoro matchup. So this guy definitely has a home. Now, Shirahoshi is a 2 cost that is not necessarily the most glamorous in terms of like in the format. You don't see like Shirahoshi decks and stuff running around. But I thought that this effect is so good, actually. Hear me out. If one of your characters with an original cost of 6 or less leaves the field by an opponent's effect, you can flip the top card of your life face up instead. If you don't have any other Shirahoshi characters with an original cost of 2, all of your characters with Seeking typing gain 2,000 power on your opponent's turn. Not only in a Shirahoshi deck where you're spamming out these Seeking characters, gaining 2,000 power on the defensive phase to make them harder to KO on power-based conditions or battle, they have a protection effect because they're all like 6 costs or less. And all you gotta do is flip up the top of your life face up. And you can actually do that as many times as you want. So if for any reason, I guess, you have this like other effect to be able to take your life, or maybe like it's like a green Zoro matchup where like they have to swing at leader because they already swung at a character earlier, and you know, you have that face up life, and maybe they're gonna try to use an effect like the one event, I forget the name of it because it's like Rashomon or something. Yeah, take that life, boom, face up life. I think this card is crazy, and if Shirahoshi ever like gets really meta, It's literally because this card exists. Now, Baby 5 is a 2K that's actually utilized in a lot of different decks. It's one of the vanilla 2Ks, but it has a trigger on it that if your leader is multicolored, you can draw 2 cards. That's it. I mean, it's just draw 2 cards. You don't have to draw 2, trash 1. It is literally just draw 2 cards. Although it might not be the most pristine 2K out there and get a lot of showcase, because once again, like I said, yellow's kind of a little bit on the decline right now. I have seen a ton of half yellow decks play this Baby 5, not simply because they can find it or anything like that, because the trigger is just really good. I Love You is an event and is very good for the purple-yellow Rosinante deck. I kind of think you can actually sneakily play this in Trafalgar Law maybe, because this 1-cost counter event gives up to one of your leaders or characters 2,000 power during the battle. But if you have 2 or less life, you can add a Trafalgar Law from your trash to your hand. Now, in Green Yellow Law, that doesn't sound like overly glamorous, right? Because the different options that you're probably grabbing are either like the 5-cost brick Trafalgar Law blocker or the 7-cost secret rare brick Trafalgar Law. But honestly, if like you're not afraid of dying and you're not going to die anytime soon, 2 or less life is not that all unreasonable for a Trafalgar Law deck. And if they KO, remove like the 7-cost or the blocker or whatever, you could make sure that you have a way to be able to put that back down onto the field. But a point that I was going to make is that even though this card is those typings, right, which is not Supernova, which is kind of what you look for in especially Green Yellow Law, maybe you don't really see a home, but I could think of this as like a cheeky one of tech. Like, hear me out, hear me out, hear me out. Let's get a move on these tier 3 cards. Now, these tier 3 cards are really just like random tech cards or cards that I think that these could be in decks that are good in the future, like potential options for those decks. The first one I'll talk about is Odin, right? A Roger Pirates partial type character, 2-cost, 3,000 power with a 1K counter, has an activate main once per turn. You may reveal 2 event cards from your hand. This character gains 2,000 power for the turn. Right, I mentioned Roger Pirates, and I don't really know if it fits within like the Goldie Roger red-purple deck, but it could, right? I mean, it's not too bad of an option, but I really think that this could just be decent in Rayleigh. Giving a boost of 2,000 power, right, from revealing 2 events, you could just go ahead and use that activate main to basically give plus 4,000 power to this Odin. That's a 2-cost, 7,000 power character. That's crazy. Now it probably dies like on the clapback and stuff, and that's probably why it's not very good, because it's also like really hard to search, right? Because observation haki only grabs 3 costs and 4 costs in your deck, this being a 2-cost, and well, the Boa, Nami, Shakuyaku searchers also don't find this card, so you have to draw into it, but I mean, it could be an option. Continuing on like Roger Pirates, this former Roger Pirates Shanks, I think could be interesting because with an on play of up to one of your other Shanks characters with the Roger Pirates trait gains rush during the turn. I don't know if there's a card right now within the game that is Roger Pirates or former Roger Pirates typing. So I don't really know if this has a home currently, but because I don't really know of a card that fits this category, I want to have these Shanks in my back pocket. Jinbei is a card that we saw in a lot of Rayleigh decks at the start of OP12, but have since really kind of fallen off a little bit, but still a viable option. It's a 3-cost, 4,000 power character with 1K counter, so can be found off of something like the observation haki. It doesn't have the straw hat typing though. It's Fishman and Sun Pirates, so only observation haki works to find it. But still, you can use it, and if you reveal 2 event cards from your hand, this character gains rush and then 1,000 power until the end of your opponent's next turn. This is like a rush Zoro in a sense, but with a little bit of counter on it, because it makes itself a 3-cost, 5,000 power rush character, able to swing right away. And especially if you're revealing 2 cards for this effect, you're able to reveal 2 cards for your leader effect, which means that you're able to make this a 3-cost, 7,000 power character for at least that turn, and then on the clapback, 5,000 power, which that seems pretty all right. This is probably out of the couple cards that I've mentioned that could be viable in Rayleigh that you might want to hold on to. This is the most viable to come back in Rayleigh, in my opinion. Now, this 2-cost Buggy Rogers pirate character, I think is more viable than the Shanks, and I'll tell you why. On the on-play, up to one of your characters with the Roger Pirates type other than Buggy gains blocker until the end of your opponent's next end phase. Think about the different cards that you can give blocker within the Roger deck. If you give it to the Scooper, you can give it to the Scooper. That Goldie Roger promo card, that's insane. The Silver's Rayleigh card that has Rush, you can get a 9,000 power blocker. Even stuff like Inarashi, right? If you end up playing that card, I don't know if you would, but like you can play that card. Right, like my point is there's actually a decent amount of Roger Pirates characters that like you can give that boost to, and I think especially once the main OP13 set comes out, we'll see a couple more that maybe we want to utilize. I think you could play this card. Like just giving blocker can be so nice. That means like you don't have to play as many blockers, especially because it's not like you're playing a 2-drop chum blocker on the field. You're playing something that you can give any of those cards blocker. They could be a 8-cost blocker. It could be a 10-cost blocker. It could be whatever. Going down into green, I like Kinemon. Kinemon is not very glamorous as a 6-cost, 8,000 power slash type character, but there's a really cool combo with the Kinemon deck where you can cheat this guy out and you can play him. Pretty cool. I like it. I think it's cheeky. That's really all I have to say about this. Not really anything else. This 1-cost Rosinante that is blue navy, I find to be super curious potentially in Kuzan. I don't currently have it in my deck, but I find it as an interesting option. On opponent's turn, if your blue character with a navy type leaves the field due to an opponent's effect, you can rest this character instead and discard 1 card from your hand. We've already talked about in Kuzan how it is so good just to be able to filter cards, right? This trash 1 card is a draw 1, but giving stuff on your board a protection effect, especially when maybe you struggle against removal based decks, can be really beneficial, right? It focuses your opponent on this 1-cost Rosinante, and although a 1-cost is super easy to remove, it's still pretty valuable. I don't know. I like this card and I want to play around with it a little bit more. Now, this Sora is a 2K that I see sometimes in Sanji, so I'm going to mention it in the tier 3 category. You typically don't play this card, but if you do and your leader is Sanji and the number of Dawn on your field is equal or less than the number of Dawn in your opponent's field, you get to ramp a card as rested from your Dawn deck and then draw 1 card. The reason I wanted to include it and the reason that I want to think about it in the deck itself is because, well, you get to replace it in your hand. You get to dig through your deck a little bit more. And if you've had to be really aggressive, whether that's from your leader effect, right? Going down on Dawn, maybe like Gum Gum Giant, or honestly, even like the 3-cost Sanji, if you're facing like a black deck or something like that, like Rob Lucci. So you have to use that Dawn minus a lot. This can help you get back up in the Dawn to be able to play out different cards and use different effects and things like that. And especially with Jozu in the deck usually, a lot of times you can like play this down, ramp, draw 1, and then go ahead and play Jozu to be able to pick this back up and put the 2K back in your hand. Karne I see a little bit in the Sanji decks as well. It's a 1-cost chum blocker because to gain blocker, you just need 4 or more events in your trash. That's so easy. You can play it in the early game, right? Just has a 1,000 power body that's never going to swing. And then boom, after 4 events, he's blocker. And in the late game, he's just a really nice 1-cost chum blocker. This crocodile I'm going to talk about because I'm a big fan of purple yellow croc. I wish it was good. It's not great, but every set, they just keep giving these little pieces that make me really excited for Crocodile, and then my excitement is diminished because the deck is still bad. But this is a really cool addition to the deck for a 6 Dawn turn. It's an 8,000 power character. On opponent's attack once per turn, Dawn -1. If your leader has a trait that includes Baroque works, up to one of your leaders or characters gains 2,000 power during this battle. Right, we see different effects on opponent's turn within the Crocodile deck, but this is another one that you can utilize to be able to get an extra 2K, especially in a deck that may be running a ton of bricks. Ivankov I've got as a tier 3 card. This may kind of sneak into the category of tier 2 depending on how good Red Black Sabo is. It's a 3-cost 4,000 power Rev Army blocker, but it has an on play that if you have the Rev Army typing on your leader, you can place 3 cards from your deck into your trash. It's really good to be able to just fill up your trash for stuff like Dragon, right? I mean, if you play this card and put 3 cards in your trash, you're guaranteed on the next turn to play an 8-cost dragon and be able to use that effect. Gives you a lot of flexibility, and especially with the Sabo leader effect of being able in the late game to give all of your characters and leaders plus 1,000 power, this Ivankov could be valuable because then it becomes a 5,000 power blocker, which although dies to pretty much like any of the swings that you'll face, it makes it much easier to block in like 2k out of a 6k swing. Oh crap, I accidentally skipped some other purple cards. Hold on. Trafalgar Law is very good within the purple yellow Rosinante deck. 7 cost 8,000 power on play. If your Dawn is equal or less than the number of your opponent's Dawn, you can ramp 1 Dawn as active, and then all of your characters with Don Quixote, Rosinante, and the Heart Pirates type get 1,000 power until the end of your opponent's next end phase. This is really nice for the survivability of your different characters on the field, right? Especially when it comes to your blockers, right? You've got a 4-cost Trafalgar Law. Gaining an additional 1,000 power through your opponent's offensive turn can be really good, especially if you get these like back to back, you know, just constantly putting these guys out on the field. And especially because you can use your leader effect to cheat this guy out even sooner. That's a pretty good body to get out, I'll say. This technique cancels out every sound you make, is basically the unblockable version for the Rosinante deck. Choose up to one of your Trafalgar Law characters, give it plus 2,000 power for the turn. Then when that character attacks this turn, your opponent can't activate blocker. Now, it's only for that specific character, so you can't like swing that character first and then be like, oh yes, my leader swing is unblockable as well. No, that's not how that works. But being able to go ahead and swing for game when you're cheating out these gigantic Trafalgar Law bodies, regardless of color typing, gives you a pretty interesting end game. I really like this card, and I think you could slide in a couple copies in your Rosinante deck. Brochette Blow, I see as a couple of copies in the Sanji deck. For 3 Dawn, if the number of Dawn cards on your field is equal to or lower than the number on the opponent's field, you draw 1 card, replace it in hand, and then give an opponent's character minus 3,000 power during the turn. Being able to play this off your leader effect for free or just that Dawn -1 kind of actually puts you in a lot of situations where you will be tied after that Dawn -1 or lower than your opponent to be able to draw 1 and get that minus 3,000 to be able to beat out their characters on the field. It's a very cool card. I don't see it in every single Sanji list, but the one that I'm running has it, and I enjoy it as a couple copies. It doesn't come up all the time, but it does come up sometimes. I've got the Karasu here in the tier 3 category as well. There's an argument about it being in tier 2, but I don't see it having as much play in deck lists for the Rev Army typings as I do for something like Morley or Hack. Holy moly, I've been talking a lot in this video. But this 5 cost says that if you have a Rev Army type leader, this character cost is +3, again, helping your Koala, helping your Red-Black Sabo, and when attacking, if your opponent has 5 or more cards in their hand, they gotta discard 1. So not only are you swinging 6k, and they gotta counter out of that or block or something like that, they gotta trash 1 if they have 5 or more in hand, which is very easy to hit in one piece. I feel like 5 is a really easy number to get, especially in kind of like the mid game. Captain's Ensemble is the first black event card that I'll talk about in the tier 3 category. It is just simply a 1-drop searcher event. Now, I feel like I would have usually put this in the tier 2 typing, but I have it in tier 3 because I've actually been seeing some Rev Army decks that are partially black not play this card. Although it has a really nice trigger and it helps build up the trash in your deck, it's not mandatory in decks like Koala is, but still a really good card to consider. Waxing Fist, I feel like, is a really interesting card to have in your Rev Army black decks. It's a 1k counter event. Up to one of your leaders or characters gains 2,000 power for the battle, but if you have an 8 cost or higher character with the Rev Army typing, that card that you gave power to gains an additional 2,000 power, so it's a 1 cost 4,000 power event. This is really nice. I mean, 1 cost 4,000 power events are really good in One Piece, are very nice for a lot of situations, and especially in the deck that has so many cards in the early game that give them cost to make them an 8 cost character means that you're gonna get this off more often than not. I really like this card. I don't know how many copies I'd play it though in my decks, but definitely something that you should look out for. Now, if you watch Card Ikaizoku's video, right, this 5-cost Kalgara is 4 sets too late for the Kalgara deck, but still a very good option. It's a 5-cost, 6,000 power character that says your turn when a life card is removed, draw 1 card. After that, you cannot draw cards with your own effects during this turn. Basically meaning that you can't stack, I'm pretty sure. But especially in a Kalgara deck that uses leader effect to take a life to cheat out a character, that can be really good for being able to basically have a draw 2 as you play out a character with this effect. It's also just a cheaper option for your Norland, right, to be able to heal a life with the Kalgara on field. It's a lot of good versatility with this card in the Kalgara deck and definitely a boost. And one of the reasons why in OP12 we saw Kalgara actually have a really high win rate in flagships. Didn't necessarily in terms of win rate win a lot of flagships, but ended up in those flagships having great consistent records. And especially with the potential ban list, I don't know, keep your eye on Kalgara, I guess. This Sabo's a really interesting Dressrosa 5-cost card. If you have 3 or fewer life, this character gains blocker and +3 cost with an on-play effect of adding the top card of your life to your hand, draw 2, trash 1. I really like this, especially in Black Yellow Luffy, right? Black Yellow Luffy having a lot of hype around it as of late because of not only the top 32 finish in, I believe it was one of the online treasure cups, but also just because PRBO2 with the new ace that came out. This is a 5-cost Sabo that'll work well in your decks, but also on that on play, right? We talk about Black Yellow Luffy sometimes getting stalled out, not being able to get the life down as your opponent doesn't swing and they just build board and remove stuff on the field. This is a way for you to add a life in your hand, draw 2, trash 1, which by the way is a net +1, I think, on the draw actually, because you add a card to hand with the life, you draw 2, trash 1, that's 2 cards, and you played this Sabo down on the field, which is a 1. I really like it, and having blocker and +3 cost makes it an 8-cost character on the field that is not easy to remove. Right, it's debatable on if it's better than the OP04 5-cost Sabo, but I think that this holds value in its own and one that you maybe want to look out for. And also, I mean, we could talk about it in Koala as well, as it's a Rev Army, it gains blocker and +3 cost if you take 1 life early in the game. Or that on-play effect, right? If you're at 4 life, you just on-play effect, boom, you're at 3. And even Bello Betty, right? Being a card that you can find in the searches is just a nice one to have available, I think. Now, Jewelry Vani. This is Jewelry Vani. Jewelry Bonnie is a tech card that I feel like you could play in Green Yellow Law, and maybe honestly a card in the upcoming OP13 Jewelry Bonnie. Has that activate main of resting the character. If your leader has the Supernova trait, you gain 1,000 power until the end of your opponent's next turn, and especially with the trigger of playing down the card, this can be a really interesting way to be able to gain the 1,000 power through your opponent's turn, right? Be a 6k leader, but also if you had that on the field in the end game, it's an additional 1,000 power that you don't have to use for Dawn investment if you already had it on the field, of course. I think this card is niche in Green Yellow Law, but I think that this is one for you Green Yellow Law fans like myself that you want to have in your back pocket. Just a couple cards left, I promise. We've got I Will Ring the Bell and Wait for You, right? Again, Kalgara support. It's crazy that Kalgara got 2 cards in this set, I feel like. This is a look at the top 5, reveal 2 Shandoria Warriors or Norlands, and add them to your hand, put the rest at the bottom of your deck. Kalgara in the past really just played the EBO2 Searcher events, but now they don't have to do that. Now they can go ahead and use this card, right? A searchable card because it's Sky Island Jaya Shandia Warrior, but then find other cards, including Mont Black Norland. You can find 2Ks, you can find 1 cost, you can find Mont Black Norlands, and add them to the hand. It's definitely a nice boost. I wish it didn't cost 3, but you do get to grab grab 2 cards, so that's kind of the trade-off. Slam Gibson, I would be really curious about in Supernova decks. It's one of the typical 1-cost 3k counter event cards, but on the main, if you rest 5 more Dawn, so 6 Dawn in total, if your leader has the Supernova typing, you place a character with a cost of 9 or lower on the top or bottom of the opponent's life face down. This is any one of the cards on the field, right? It's owner's life, so it doesn't have to be your opponent. It can be yours. And it's Supernova type, so like Yellow Kid, Green Yellow Law, Bonnie. I think that this can be a really cool card within the format because removing a 9 cost is huge. Like, that's a lot of things in the format. And like, especially in Green Yellow Law's terms, you could like put your own card in your life to then be able to cheat out again, right? Especially if you like swing with a Trafalgar Law blocker and then put it in your life, use leader effect, get it back out. You have an active blocker again. And you were able to probably like shambles out a search or something like that. Or like with Cavendish, right? Cavendish is a little bit more difficult because it's so weird with the like different restanding Dawn kind of thing. But like you can swing with Cavendish to restand Dawn, put it in life with Slam Gibson, and then bring it back out with leader effect and restand 2 more Dawn to be able to utilize. This card's cool. And that's my buy list for OP12. OP13 is just around the corner. Once we get that full set list, I will give you guys some good videos alongside OP13. We've also, with the ban list coming up, you know, we'll talk about the upcoming OP12 meta with the ban list enacted, what the ban list means, you know, some of the decks that benefit, you know, really hurt, etc., etc., those usual videos. Thank you again so much for watching. This video's long. I'm tired. My voice is running out, and I hope to see you in the next one.